You're listening to STAGR Cast, brought to you by STAGR Gear. Hey, welcome to episode number 3 of STAGR Cast. Before we get this episode rolling, I just want to say thank you for all the support, all the kind words that we've had with the first 2 episodes we dropped. If you haven't listened to them, you can get those podcasts on any platform that you listen to podcasts on. And to kind of roll in today, Isaac and I ventured from Vermont. We're over here in the heart of the White Mountains talking to our special guest of the day, Jon Zukowski. If you don't know Jon, you've probably seen pictures of him. He's been killing some Magnum White Mountain bucks in the recent years. And we're here today to talk some deer stories, learn some things, and kind of just talk deer hunting overall. So kind of get us rolling here, Jon. Why don't you give us a little bit of a background on yourself, tell us a little about what you do, how you hunt, and how you got into it.
Yeah, so I actually moved here to New Hampshire when I was 3 years old. Went to school in the White Mountains here. I grew up here, started fishing and hunting this area. Really got into hunting when I was a kid. My dad used to take me out on the youth hunts, so that was huge. But yeah, I mean, White Mountains, that was really the upbringing. I haven't hunted anywhere else. It's just been New Hampshire.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to kind of breaking out of there, getting into some other terrain, and looking forward to the next couple seasons. But really, New Hampshire's been it. So Central.
Fell in love with New Hampshire and just been here ever since doing it.
Yeah, yep. I went to school for a year in Vermont, so I fish in Vermont. And my mom lives in Vermont, so I got family over there. So I'll kind of be back and forth.
Yep. And for those who aren't watching the video portion of this, Jon owns a fly rod shop over here in New Hampshire. Kind of, you want to talk about that, a little bit about your background with what you do? Yeah,
so Mountain High Fly, it's about, I think, the 6th year we're going on this spring that the shop's been open. I've owned it for coming up on 3 years. So this fall will be 3 years. So we're really excited. But yeah, it's a cool thing. I mean, fly fishing's huge. It's blown up, as has hunting and anything outdoor recreation wise. Hiking, skiing. So we're really psyched, basically, to promote wild brook trout fishing here in the White Mountains.
Yep.
It's kind of similar to tracking a deer. You basically hit the trail. You got as light a gear as you can possibly get, which is similar to tracking.
Big woods.
Yep. So you look at a map and you pick a spot and you just hit it. So it's cool. But that's what we focus on primarily, is small wild brook trout. We have a fly tying department, of course. So fly tying's huge. Bucktail, that's something I'll get into later, but deer is a huge part of fly fishing, so
no kidding.
It's cool. So we really are psyched to have our tying stuff. We carry a lot of U.S. products, a lot of U.S. made rods and reels and lines and stuff like that. But yeah, the pike fishing, that's kind of blown up too. So on the non-trout side of things, we do a lot of pike fishing, and there's a whole lot of bucktail involved with pike flies. So
no kidding.
It's one of the coolest things.
I didn't know that. I had no idea.
Yep. Pike cool. Fishing and bucktail, spaghetti and meatballs.
Really?
Same with muskie. Okay. You get on like a forum, like a Facebook group or something like that, and half of the talk revolves around quality of bucktail or belly hair.
Really?
Okay. So it's like different areas in the United States produce different kind of bucktail?
Absolutely.
So what's the most desirable bucktail?
Prime northern bucktail, it's called. So,
really?
Yeah, the one I have here is from the deer I shot this year, actually. So.
Oh, no kidding.
This is one I actually process myself. So.
And you'll use that in the flies that you design and tie.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
So I have a selection here, and these are all, as you can see, it says large northern bucktail right there.
Yeah.
You get all these dyed colors, but this is natural white, of course. The only thing I use to clean this up, Dawn dish soap. And little elbow grease, actually, quite a bit. That's the hard part, is cleaning everything up, and once you get that, it's not too bad. But the commercial process, they dye them, and it's a little more. But
interesting. Learn every day.
Yeah, I had no idea. That's
it's pretty cool. Yeah. So not a lot of people realize, and bucktail streamers, small bucktails, like the red and white, a couple others. Those are traditional, like the Mickey Finn. That's probably the most well-known. It's just a little, bright yellow and orange bucktail. But those are what really started it. And then from there, the pike muskie stuff, which is, 14, 15 inches long sometimes.
So you're hunting for meat and fishing lures.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
No, you could definitely say there's more to it. I'm not going to go out and like shave the hair off and make a drum out of the skin.
Gotcha.
So, but I use as much as I possibly can.
Yeah, cool.
Some guys, they will take it to that level. And,
Really?
People, make I've heard of, you can make, string, I guess, and certain things out of the hides. But I haven't gotten that far, but I do feel a little better using the tail and some of the belly chunks and stuff. So
Yeah, utilizing the animal.
Using the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's cool. That's
it's a little
cool.
extra, and for guys that don't fly fish, if you want to use a tail and you ice fish, you do that for jigs. I mean, it's the same material.
Yep.
You don't have to. It's not only fly fishing. This winter, I've had more guys come in for jigs to tie their own bucktail jigs with
No kidding.
little tails, and the base material for the body is the bucktail. So.
So what is it about deer hair that's good for fly fishing? Is it just the color and stuff, or is there other properties that are?
Yeah, so it's pretty hollow. So that's the thing, especially the belly fibers. So you get into belly hair, and that's the most hollow. So say like deer hair poppers, bass bugs, stuff like the Dahlberg diver. Most people know that as like a bass or a pike fly. It's meant to float and kind of dive, but without using foam and using a natural material. The best thing is definitely deer. You look at elk hair; it doesn't have as much of a porous inside, so it's actually just one open. If you look at it under a microscope or like a really good magnifying glass, even you'll see like an open section on the interior of the bucktail or the belly hair. More so the belly hair, not so much the bucktail, because that's again not as as floaty. But the thing with the bucktail is it undulates. It really moves a lot. So you get into the belly hair for spinning. So if you're trying to build a head, you're trying to build a whole popper, you'll use the belly. If you're trying to do a pike fly or a muskie fly, your basic pattern to build the body, you're going to use these longer middle of the tail fibers. So the stuff that's in this section here that's really long, because that just moves. That's going to add a lifelike movement like a fish. So.
And the northern bucktail's the best one, huh?
Prime northern bucktail.
No kidding.
So kind of going from tracking where you're chasing around these big northern bucks, it feeds right into that, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. The fibers are longer. So like again, I mean, we were talking earlier about older deer having longer hair. The one over there that's got the long ear hair.
Yeah, that's crazy.
The tail's the same way, and I processed his tail. It didn't come out quite as nice as this one. I used it. It actually caught me a really nice fish the first fly tied
That's
out
awesome.
of it, so it's it was great to get that, but this one came out a lot better, and it actually had very surprising length for the age of the deer. I think it was maybe a 3-year-old deer, this one here, and that he was 8 or 10 or
that's
ancient.
so.
Ancient.
We'll post some pictures of that one after.
Yeah,
that
he
buck,
was
no
a
doubt
little-
about it. I mean, that must be pretty special to be catching a fish using alpha deer that you tracked up in the mountains of the same mountains that you're fishing, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, there's been times where I'm tying the fly or fishing the fly, and I can see the same ridge or the same mountain that I shot the deer on. So.
That's special.
It's badass.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, so it's cool.
How'd you get started in tracking before? How did you get into track? I know you said you hunted with your dad youth days and stuff, but how did you get into tracking? Was it what drew you to it?
I definitely grabbed some Benoit books from my pops that he had. That's the start for a lot of people, I think. But really the terrain around here, I sat for a little bit, and I had some success. My dad, he was a great bow hunter. He grew up in New Jersey, and that's where he bow hunted.
Okay.
The population down there is so different. So he really keyed in on how to sit and how to stand hunt down there, and then he brought that style here, and he had success doing it. And he still does, but I don't sit well. I'm one of those guys that kind of has to move. So it was just a natural progression from there. Kind of just me getting antsy and wanting to explore. And I was a hiker in high school. I used to hike all the time. I did a bunch of the 4,000 footers. I never got into it to the point where I was a freak about it. I would hike to remote ponds mostly to fish, but there was times where I'm like, all right, let's go to this peak or that peak, whatever. So, it was kind of that, just a blend of what I grew up doing, and then, hunting in a way that felt more effective for here. So it was just a natural progression, really. But, there was certainly, YouTube was starting to come out, and certainly some of the content I was starting to see was like, all right, this looks kind of cool. And, but early on, it was really those, classic Benoit books. I think it was How to Bag Your Biggest Buck. That was the one.
Yep.
So,
It's for a lot of people up in this region. They read those.
yeah, that was it. So,
But it's definitely the resurgent with YouTube. That's really brought the second wave of trackers and that podcast and everything. It seems like it's Isaac and I were talking about that in one of the past podcasts, how it's been like romanticized lately, and there's a lot more interest in it. Just like there's a lot more interest in fly fishing and everything, which is pretty cool to see.
Yep.
Kind of going from there, do you want to dive right into this 2018 buck?
Yeah, let's hear the story.
To get into that, so when Isaac brought your name up to me for this podcast, as I wasn't sure who you were, I hadn't heard your name, but as soon as he sent me the picture of you with your 2018 buck, I said, I've seen that a lot. I remember back when you got that thing, it was getting shared around a lot because it's a giant. Kind of take us into that. How did that go down? Everything from how you found the deer, scouting, if you scouted it, or everything, the day, the track, the terrain, everything.
Yeah, so it's funny. The story is actually, I'd like to describe it as in reverse with this deer, so I'll explain that later. But I actually wasn't aware of the deer or anything. I actually started not using cameras. I use them a little bit now, but more just for fun.
Yep.
But, I grew up just kind of, again, hiking around, and I had a bunch of spots on a list that I wanted to check out for tracking, and over the years I tracked some deer. I tracked with a longbow for a couple years.
Oh, man.
That's badass.
Just start out, get my kind of tracking chops, if you will, confidence is pretty low, but at least I could, during, the right time of the season, say, because I didn't have a muzzleloader, early bow, if we would get snow, I'd go out and track. So
with a longbow.
With the longbow, yeah.
That's
and I currently do it with a recurve, and I'm really dead set on. I've had a lot of close opportunities with a rifle, and I'll tell you more about that. This deer was one of those.
Yep.
But so I basically started out, doing that, getting my tracking down, when I could, early season. And then eventually, 2018 was definitely the year where I felt the most confident. I had gotten a deer in 2017 on bare ground. We didn't have a lot of tracking snow. I shot the deer early. I think later in the season we got some. But 2018, I was rearing and ready to go. And when I finally got the snow, I think it was the first week. It was I think the fourth day of the rifle season. This deer was in a piece of land I was very familiar with. I grew up, it was, almost backyard status. It was very familiar, but at the same time, I knew there was guys back there. It was kind of one of those spots where, you could go for a while, but you could also kind of hang close. And there was a lot of guys that hung close, so... but basically, it was a very classic tracking day. The snow was light, fluffy. Definitely, a track. If you stepped in, you could see contour of your boot. Pretty good detail. So I knew it was a good day. I actually parked my car, and I do a lot of this. I'll park my car at one spot, and I'll have my my pops pick me up somewhere else, or I have a hunting family now at this point. My sister hunts and stuff, and her boyfriend and such. So. We can kind of get rides if needed. So I kind of planned on that. I packed a lunch, packed everything I needed, set out for my car, hiked probably about 3 or 4 miles. I saw a bunch of, kind of barnyard scenarios. There's a ton of tracks. And I was trying to sort things out, find something that's worth following. And I got to a certain point, and I saw this one big track, and then, I was hitting mushrooms. And I saw this one tree where it looked like a moose had climbed up and eaten these mushrooms. It was almost 7-8 feet up. It was crazy high, and I was like, "Oh my god! This is a big deer."
Yep.
And the print, obviously, the track was huge.
You had a big old foot.
Big old foot. It was. I'll talk to you more. I don't have a real big shell. I hunted 260, so when I lay that in and it just drops to the bottom, that's how I know. All right, let's go. But so. Saw that track, but it just kind of was in and out of all this other, it was just a mess. So I was like, all right, let me just keep going. I'll see if he pops out in this one spot. And sure enough, I keep going, and I saw him come out, but then he went back into the mess, and it was just real thick stuff, kind of nighttime cover where they hang at night. They'll come back up and go bed up higher. So I kept going, and I got to this little stream, 2.5, 3 foot wide stream, real small, no name, nothing, just a trickle coming off a mountain. And I just got the feeling he probably went up towards that, but a couple 100 yards up further. So I go up, probably about 50, 60 yards off this log road, and next thing you know, I see the track, and it's all by itself. He's kind of wandering, he's feeding. Snow's coming down still, it's real light, and the track has nothing in it. I'm talking like nothing. So I'm like, oh my God.
So it was snow. It was snowing the whole morning you were out there?
Snowing the whole morning.
Okay.
And let me back up a little bit. There's a fucking snowmobile cruising around, and we're talking early season. This is November. There's usually no snowmobilers out. I'm like, oh my God, this guy, and he blows right through my zone. So I'm like, you're not supposed to snowmobile where I am either. Like it's not. It's like hiking trails and stuff. And I don't know. This guy was like out in his backyard, just like must have gotten a new sled or something. He was having fun.
Right.
It's like, all right, whatever. So I actually ate a sandwich and just let it chill out, and So I kept going after that, and that's when I got that tributary I came up on. I was like, all right, let me just cruise up here. He's probably going to use this. A lot of the big bucks like to bed near some water source. So. So I cruised up, and next thing you know, I found that track real fresh. Snow's coming down. Excuse me. I cruised up a little bit longer and took a picture. I just pulled my phone out, hand next to the track, send it to my pops. I'm like, I want a good one. This is sweet. I'm psyched. So and he gets back to me immediately. It's nice, and good luck, whatever. So I keep going, and I'm on this deer for I don't know, probably about 10 minutes or so, and I'm cruising, and I see this big pile of boulders, and I'm like, all right, this looks like a spot. I could see a buck bed, and there's some water over to the right. Got some rocks, so I'm cruising up, and next thing you know, boom, the deer comes up.
Really?
That quick.
How far was he?
8 yards.
Oh,
that close?
My goodness.
Oh man! And you're
close.
hunting up on him.
So
Uphill.
So and what I'm doing is I don't weigh that. I'm like 150 pounds. I can go quiet. So I'll get into that later. I've gotten close to a lot of deer. Yeah. That's the closest I've been to, and I could see when he stood up, I saw the steam come out of his nose.
Wow.
Like, holy shit.
Bet you'll never forget that.
It's just the bone. Like he's just racked.
Yeah, you ain't missing that.
Like it's just the whitest rack, so that's up against kind of a darker. There was some spruce behind him and some hardwood and stuff. I mean, it just stood right out.
Yep.
So that was the first thing I saw, and he's out of it. I mean, I popped him right out of his bed. So I throw the gun up, and it's snowing, so I have a scope. I'm all fogged up. I got water. It's a mess.
Yep.
So I'm like, all right, and I did what you were talking about earlier. I kind of give a look at the, real thing. I go back to the scope, real thing. I'm like, all right, and he's just sitting there. He's about to take off. I'm like, I got to make the move, and I'm just as steady as I can. Take my shot, and he takes off, and, there's no sign of me hitting him. I mean, I was on him, but it was just such a mess again in the scope. But, I'm pretty good with it. I used to ski a lot, and my goggles will get all, screwed up, and I'm kind of used to that. So I was pretty confident I got him. But so I went up to where he was, and, he was right up by a big pine. He'd actually had his back down slope towards me, and he was facing towards this pine, which was really kind of a weird scenario. I figured he'd be the other way.
So he wasn't looking down at you?
No, he was looking kind of up. Like,
that's interesting.
He popped up and turned around to see what I was.
He just had no idea.
He did like a little 180.
Right? Yeah.
He had no idea. No, he heard something. I think I maybe like like something like that. Like it was something like I cleared my throat and he popped out. Like there was no. Wow. It was the perfect snow. It was dead quiet. Yeah. So he maybe heard me breathe. Like it was. That's why he didn't. I think bolt. So anyway, I went up and I saw no blood at first. So I'm like, oh man,
heart sunk.
Mm-hmm. I was devastated.
Yeah.
So I called my pops right away, I didn't take any moves. I just stopped. I was like, you know what, this deer's, if he was just kind of dazed, whatever, he's going to be probably right over the next hill wondering what the hell that was. He just, was that a dream? What the hell just happened?
Yeah.
So anyway, I kept going, and I called my pops. I was like, I shot at a giant, blah, blah, blah. He's like, all right, stay on it. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go see what's up. And kept going, and I'm on the phone with him, and I have my phone out, and I see blood. I was like, oh, man, I got blood. So I put my phone in my pocket, and I just tear off.
Started taking off on him.
Yeah, so I at that point decided, if I hit him, it might not have been a great shot. Again, the scope was such a crapshoot, so I kept on him. I went up, and I see him, and he's up there, and he didn't look good. He was standing there kind of like looking back. I was like, all right, I think I did get a good hit on him. Just not a lot of blood, probably big animal, 260, whatever.
Yep.
Passed right through. I use the core lock, so it's like those are, they usually do the trick. So I come up and I see him looking back at me, and I take another shot, and I think I got him like right on the side, because I hit him a couple times. I got him, I think I grazed his stomach or something, and he took off after that. So then I chased him again, and he hadn't dropped, and he's looking back at me again, and I shoot him, and I hit him, and he hunches up, and he still doesn't drop. And I rack him one more time. I have a bolt action.
Yep.
And I'm pretty quick with it, but I had all the time in the world. And the last shot I drop him, he's facing away from it. He just crumples. And,
No kidding.
yeah, so it was one of those scenarios where it happened so quick to me. It felt like probably 10 minutes, but I think it was probably a matter of 3 to 4 minutes.
It just happens. That's the way it goes. It's the way it goes down.
The adrenaline was flowing.
It was flowing. I made
that
that call. My pops, he actually didn't know. He was on the phone the whole time. He didn't hear the shots. He heard me rustling around a little bit. I pulled the phone out to tell him. I just dropped him, and he was there still. But he was like, "What just happened?" I was like, "I just got him."
Oh my god!
Were you freaking out at that point?
Yeah, because I hadn't actually gotten. I got one deer before that solo, and I gotten a fair amount of deer with him, a couple deer, and that was the thing. I was excited because it was a big buck, and he wasn't there, so he came right out and helped me, and one of his buddies ended up helping too. So, but it was great, and he came out and took this photo right here actually. And,
Yep.
That's the first photo right there.
that was the first one. Yep. So
That's awesome.
Yep.
yeah.
How far away was that last shot that dropped him? How far out were you from him?
I was probably about 30 yards. I would say.
Not too bad. So your first shot, where did you hit him that first shot? You think?
First shot, I think went clean through him. I think it was perfect
Just big
vitals.
animal.
Through the shoulder, double long, or definitely. He was so. As soon as he knew something was wrong, he was gone.
Yep.
He didn't know what happened. My scope was again in rough shape. I was pretty confident I got him, but it wasn't 100%. So it was kind of that slight bit of hesitation with the having the equipment issues that I wasn't sure. So I didn't want to take off, but I had a feeling he was hit good.
Yeah.
But you noticed he was feeding.
Yep.
On the track, and that's when you started to sneak on him. Really slow down.
He was definitely doing the zigzag all over the place.
So you knew he was gonna lay down.
It was classic. It was zigzag when I picked him up, and then it was beeline. So I knew.
And then he started.
Which is funny because this buck was not that way at all.
Really?
That was a long track. So, but I've heard the stories of guys picking up tracks quick and shooting the deer 10 minutes later. So I was ready for it. I wasn't like, oh, this isn't a possibility. I was fully prepared, so especially given that it was he was eating the mushrooms earlier. He was down in this nighttime kind of area, and he was rolling up. So.
I was going to ask about that. So he fed down low with mushrooms, and then he went up a little trickle, went straight up the trickle?
He kind of beelined it right up the, you got to think. I mean, he ate some food. He wanted to wash it down. He wanted to go in right up. Yeah. That was kind of it. So a lot of deer do that. This year's buck I got was a prime example. Same thing, right by a small little trickle.
Yep.
Yeah.
Huh.
I've seen a lot of big bucks, in particular, feed on mushrooms.
Yeah,
they like
big ones.
I'm glad you picked up on that.
Oh yeah. Yep, and off rocks and whatever logs and.
I see those little orange ones off those laydowns.
Yeah,
they love those little orange ones.
They do. Yeah,
the big, or even the big white ones, like off. That's
it seems to be like
beech trees and stuff.
Yeah. Yep. The ones that look the least edible. Like
exactly.
Really,
yeah.
Really.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know the name of them, but they're kind of, they have like a burgundy color to them almost, and then sometimes they are like orange.
Orangish
but
ones, yeah.
they come like the fresh ones, like the ones we eat. It seems like they don't really care for them.
No, yeah.
They seem to. I guess it's almost like an age, like a root cellar type deal. They're always there. They're ready to consume, and they don't rot. So maybe.
Would you say that was the biggest track you followed up to this date? His foot was that big, or have you followed some bigger ones?
I've tracked some other deer that are
bigger.
And what did he dress out at? I don't think you said.
212.
212 he dressed out at.
Yeah. So
that's a big old buck.
Yeah, and his piece, I think, you're sitting on the jacket with the patch. It's become my lucky jacket there. So
Yep, cool.
So it's
patch.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was cool. It was one of those things. I rolled into the check station, and they're like, "Oh, you got to do all this," and I knew about it, but I was like, "All right, that's they're really pushing me," and I'm glad I did it because again, it was kind of that first deer that I really. The one the year before was like 170 something. And I was like, that's cool. But I checked in at a place that didn't have a scene. You know what I mean? Like a fire station.
Yep.
But you go to another place that's, more of a traditional check-in station. And I think even if it was 200 pounds and it was at the fire station, they probably wouldn't have urged me to do it. And so I'm glad I did it. And, it's just a cool thing because now it's another goal. But... I'm in it for the experience mainly, but to do something like that and be able to have a little bit of bragging, right? It feels good,
Yeah, for sure.
Not everybody, fishing wise, like you got the trophy trout program. It's something I don't indulge in. You guys have the Master Angler.
Master Angler,
yeah. So it's a cool thing. If we had Master Angler, I like the format of that a little more. I think I'd probably do it, but either way, it's cool. Fishing, hunting, whatever. So.
How far in were you that day? How long of a drag was it out before we go on?
It was 4.5 miles.
So that's pretty good.
It was far.
4.5 mile drag out or 4.5 in were you?
It was 4.5 out. So I was in between. Again, I did a scenario where I hiked in and I was going to get picked up. And, my pops. I'm trying to think how he hiked in. He hiked in a really weird way, I think.
And he was right there to help you right after you got.
So I had cell service, but I didn't have a lot of battery.
Yep.
It was a classic scenario.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a map and compass guy, so I'll bring the phone as backup, but I really rely on the classics. But so I told him that. I said, I don't have much battery. You gotta, make sure. Here's the coordinate. I sent it to him, and he's like 50 something. He's not great with a cell phone. So, but he punched in the coordinate in his. I don't know if we were on Onyx at that point, but we did Google Maps for a little while, and then he's like, we're doing Onyx now. But he punched it in. He was there in I think an hour. So
it's not too bad.
He beelined it. Yeah. He did really well. But how he went in, I don't know. It was a way I did not drag the buck out. We actually. It's funny, we got a snowmobile. The guy that was dragging riding the sled.
Riding around,
he came up on us when we were dragging. He
really
helped us drag out, which is cool.
Good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We're like, we don't tell anybody you're
You
out
thought he
here.
was your enemy. You thought he was your enemy for a minute, and then he's helping you out. That's
Exactly.
awesome. That's crazy.
He happened to be a local guy. He was really nice, and I'd never met him. And he actually, the weird part of the story too is we were dragging the buck out, and a spike was coming at us, walking right towards us on this trail that he was on. So, but he was like, my dad was there, and he had his rifle. He's like, "You gonna shoot it?" And my dad was like, "No." You let him walk, but the guy was like shocked when that happened. He was like,
really
couldn't believe it.
He was like, "I've never seen a deer out here."
Really?
Wow.
And then you're dragging out a giant, and then there's another buck coming up.
We couldn't believe it. He was like,
must have been a real.
He said he was going to start hunting, actually.
Yeah.
I think we kind of like changed his life in a way. Like, he's like, I could be out here doing that instead of, possibly getting in trouble with the the law, because he definitely wasn't supposed to be out there at that point. So I'm glad he gave a lending hand at least.
Well, it sounds like there could have been a real pretty doe around.
Yeah, I think there was.
Like that.
Yeah, I think there was. But, there was other guys, again, that was kind of an area, like when we saw we were a couple miles out from where I shot the deer, we were getting into that zone where there's other people, and you will see, there's a lot of deer in those areas, but it's like, you want those bigger bucks.
Yep.
You got to go. You got to go deep.
You got to get back in there,
Yep.
Got to go where the people are.
So 2018 and 2019, you went back to back with big bucks tracking.
Yep.
Let's roll right into the 2019 buck, if you'd like to tell us that story.
Yeah, so the 2019 buck, that was total opposite. 2018 short track job, close quarters. This was polar opposite. It was a long track job, long shot. So basically, I picked the track up pretty quick. One of those early morning, go-to beats. You go there, kind of expect something, usually a doe or smaller buck crossing. But immediately I found a toe dragger, which was sweet.
That's awesome.
You can get into those bigger deer pretty quick sometimes, but not always.
Yeah,
it was one of those mornings, so I was like, all right. So I picked it up, and again, same thing. I give my pops a shout, let them know I was on a good one, and kept going. And this one was just going up, and it was just all over the place. It wasn't feeding all the time, but it was picking. It was kind of doing the browse thing. You could tell he's kind of, like hitting some lichen, or I call them buck buds, which I think a lot of people call it moose munch. It's like a little bud that
moose hobble. I think they call
hobble,
it.
hobble bush or whatever.
Yeah.
So he's hitting a little of that and some lichen and moss, but. So I was following him and kind of ready, I was like, this could be another deer where he's right up ahead, he's moseying, he's not aware of what's, behind him. So I did that, and I was like probably 2 miles in deep, and I'm like, all right, he's just cruising. Like, he actually crossed another really good buck track, and I almost took that one because it was nice. It was
comparable size.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I was like, you know what? Let me just keep on this one.
You're invested.
He was going.
Yeah.
I was invested in him. So, and I kept smelling him. So that's one sign where I'm like, you come up on a log or something. I'm like, all right, let me keep on it. He's close. So I got to this brook, and it's pretty wide. It's probably about 10, 12 feet wide. And all of a sudden, fresh snow. Actually, it was pretty bad conditions. So I should have started with that. It was pretty loud. It was. Let me think. So it was like a 2-inch coating, maybe 3 inches, but it was melting out. But it had a little crunch to it, so it was weird. Like, you could still see the leaves through the snow. So I ended up getting down and getting in this brook, and he's going across the brook, and I see his tracks. All of a sudden, he just splays out. Like, it looked like he almost fell, or he did fall. His legs just went everywhere. So I'm like, oh man. This deer's close because there was nothing. Like, you could tell he had just gotten onto that ice and then took off probably about an hour before I crossed that brook. So as soon as he got to the other side, he was on his way. He kept moseying, picking off stuff, and then he got to this trail, and I crossed the trail. There was no tracks. Or I'm sorry, no, I get to the trail. There's tracks. There's a set of tracks going up, and I'm following the deer, and the deer goes right over the set of tracks. I'm like, oh man, this trail kind of goes over and kind of sneaks around. So I was like, all right, this could be trouble. Somebody might pick this deer up. It was definitely a hunter.
So it was a hiking trail.
Okay, gotcha.
Gotcha.
But a lot of people use the hiking trails sometimes for access or whatever.
Right, to hunt.
It was a lacrosse boot, I'll tell you
Gotcha.
that. So.
Yeah.
So it was a hunter track going up the trail.
Yeah.
And then your buck cut straight across his.
Yeah, my buck went right across his track.
Okay.
So I knew there was a chance that if he stayed on the trail he was on and hung in the right direction, that the deer was actually going to cut across again, and that he would have picked it up and then been on his way. So I was like, oh man. But again, invested, so I kept going. And I knew it was going to swing up and cross the trail again, so I kept going, and all of a sudden, crosses a trail, there's no track, there's no hunter, went off somewhere else. I was like, all right, that's cool. So I kept going.
Must have been after him.
Yeah, well, so
either that or he wasn't a tracker.
So the deer, or the person walked first. The deer went over his.
That's what I'm saying.
Gotcha.
So the hunter went first, the deer second, and I was shocked because the timing. It makes you think. How many times are you walking through the woods and there's a deer right over your shoulder somewhere? Got to keep your eyes peeled.
Yeah.
So anyway, I cross the trail. Hunter's track is gone. I'm still on the buck. I keep going. And he goes straight up and real steep. And then eventually he gets to this really, really rocky stuff, borderline like mountain goat terrain. And there's a ton of doe sign, and there's beds, there's piss, there's everything. I mean, there's sign everywhere. And then he starts, laying down some rubs and stuff. And he kind of does he goes up and then he hooks back, but way above where he came from. So he's heading actually back the same direction where he came from, but much higher elevation. And he's just kind of cruising looking for does. And then, I could tell right away he wasn't going to bed. He wasn't going to, hang out. He was on a mission. And this was probably 3 miles in. So I track him another mile going that opposite direction, back to where I came from, but much higher up. And it got really technical. So the snow was melting out. It was good because it was quieting down, but his track was getting harder to decipher and figure out, was this him or was it one of those other does or, possible other bucks.
Were you in the spruces? Were you real high?
No, so it was still hardwoods. It was still hardwood, yeah. It was fairly open, but it was getting that sprucey kind of elevation. And, I got into this section where, again, it was kind of, just a mess. And I'm going, and I'm just going real slow, just because, he could be anywhere. And all of a sudden I spot him, and he's cruising. He's probably about 80 yards, maybe 90 yards away, and he's going downhill, and he's on a mission. He's just cruising. He's got his head down. And I'm like, all right, I got to get myself set here. This is going to be a long shot. I have the scope, so I was like, all right, let me just get up on this tree. I position myself, and I get ready to take the shot. And he's just going down, and I wait for this one little opening, and I take the shot, and I see him just immediately go, and it looked like he got hit. He kind of hunched up. It's like, all right, I felt pretty good about that, and he just takes off, and this time I booked it right down towards him. After about probably 30 seconds, I couldn't see him. He couldn't see me. I was like, all right, I'm going. So I take off, I get down to him. And then I see his tracks and just a tiny bit of blood, some hair. I was like, all right, there's some contact. And he's just going down. And all of a sudden, I just go over this little crest, and I see him, and he's just, same thing, just booking it. So I take another running shot, and then he slows down. And then he kind of stops, and he went broadside looking uphill at me. And I think I shot him one more time. And he took off again. I couldn't see him, so I just kept going. I was like, all right, I think I got him. I called my pops, gave him a ring, let him know. And he was actually at work, so he couldn't help, or he was, he wasn't out there. So I went down, saw the deer laying there probably about 5 minutes later. It's like, all right, he looks done. And I gave him a little, a couple more minutes. I saw he was kind of light breathing, whatever. I thought for sure he was done. So I go up and I'm walking. I'm within 10 yards of him. He just fucking bolts, takes off.
So you had watched him for 3 minutes right there?
For several minutes. He was light breathing, and eventually
towards the end,
he
you thought
he was done.
Yep.
I think he knew I was there. And he was just like,
they're tough,
man.
aren't they?
They're tough animals.
Incredible
So
animals.
And I've never had an experience like that where I've seen them. I had a little farm going. I've killed chickens, I've killed goats, whatever. I was used to that, but it was I've never had a buck. Not just that one at 30 yards he just dropped and walk up. So that was kind of a new thing. I was like, all right, well, I guess they can fucking charge you. You can have a really bad experience if you don't. And I wasn't about to go grab the rack, but I sure as hell I got close 10 yards and he bolted. His leg was in rough shape, and the last shot, it was the last bullet I had without having to dig into my pack and get my my emergency bullets. I was like, I got to make this one count. And, I gave him one in the neck, and he was done. So
wow,
it was a great hunt. And again, it felt like 10 minutes. It was probably about 2-3 minutes.
Yeah.
Fast, man. That happens.
The adrenaline, the old heart was pumping.
Oh, it was pumping, yeah. And I watched him, take his last breath and go down, and it was the coolest. He kind of kicked his head back in this way that was it was just cool, and I'll never. I don't think I'll ever take one in that manner again, because it was so personal.
Right.
I've never been that close to one when it's actually gotten to that moment. So it was neat, but I prefer to drop them. The first one I ever got, second one I got a neck shot. I watched it just and thought that was kind of how it went every time, but
So that buck, would you say the speed that you had the speed that you were tracking him, was it faster than the year? Do you get what I'm trying to say here? Like,
yeah.
Were you going quicker on
quick.
it? You were moving quick on him because you read that track.
Yeah.
That he was not.
Yeah. The fact that
down.
I could, the first couple times, I could kind of pick up, I could smell him a little bit. I was like,
yeah,
he's around, but I think what it is glands. He's hopping over shit.
Right.
He's leaving his scent behind, and he's just, you could tell. It was a pretty straight track with a little bit of like feeding here and there, but.
Did you know you were that close to him when you do you think you were that close to him when you finally saw him going down through with his head down? Or I mean, the fact that you caught him on his feet is impressive in that.
That was.
You had to have been moving.
Yeah,
I was moving quick, and it was a weird snow condition. So again, I started out. It was more snow when I started tracking him, less snow when I caught up to him significantly. It was like probably 3 inches when I started. It melted down to about an inch. I was just able to keep on him. So I didn't really know because it had melted out so much, and it was warm. It was dripping from the trees. When it gets like that,
quiet.
It gets
you're
real
like,
quiet.
Yeah, quiet, but you're like, oh, I only got so much.
Makes you nervous though. Makes you nervous.
Yeah, it's kind of like whatever.
Time's running out. The sand's running out. So if you didn't move as quick as you did, you would have never caught that deer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
he probably would have never bet it up.
No, yeah. If you did the Benoit pussyfoot, you would have been. I would have been miles behind him.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, and I know the area well, so that was kind of the thing. Is I knew he was heading up. I knew there was a doe area. There's a nice plateau. There's a spot where they like to bed and hang out. So I was kind of, thinking he was heading that way, but he was, but he wasn't. He went up, but then he started hanging back towards where he came from. So that was kind of the weird part. So I don't know.
What was
you gotta
the date?
move sometimes.
What was the date on that deer?
That was within the first couple days. I think that was the third day of rifle. So that probably was. Oh man, I'd have to check. I think it was the 13th, November 13th.
Yeah, so
14th.
I mean that makes sense because
that
go crazy.
It sounds like he was straight lining. That's kind of
he was, yeah. And that's the problem I have with a lot of deer, like especially in the mountainous areas. When they want to be somewhere, they're going to go, and it's you have to be so in shape to keep on them. And we talked about this earlier. I mean, there's only so many people willing to do that, and so many people that are
who can.
capable.
Yeah.
You'll have a problem if you're but it gets exciting and you're on the track and you're like, holy shit, I got to keep on this. So there's times when I come into hunting season first week and I'm definitely not in prime shape. I sit here tying flies a lot of the time. The
cardio gets there though after a few weeks.
A little break in, you're good to go.
Yeah, so
that's the hardest time to catch a buck is when they're in that phase, and the fact that you caught him on his feet going down, that's
you had to have been moving,
cruising,
flying.
And again, I'm
150 pounds.
150 pounds. And sometimes less, sometimes 148. I
can only imagine
when I'm not eating enough venison or steak.
But you know what? I've noticed a lot of really good trackers are similar build to yourself.
Okay, yeah.
They're, like Jim Massette is a legendary tracker.
Yeah.
And he's a smaller guy like you.
Yep.
And
lanky.
And I feel like
he's Adirondacks, right?
Yeah, you guys don't have to work as hard to move.
We don't. We got the freakishly long arms, legs, everything. I mean, I do a lot of pulling, so like when I'm, tracking, there's times when deer go up, mountain goat, borderline rock climbing scenarios, where they cruise right up and
you're grabbing on the little whips and yourself up.
Yeah, and then you break that. You go into like a little bit of, you shave some time like by doing that. You go into this little mode where you're like, all right, if I grab this, I take this extra little route that's quicker. You're gonna be on that buck faster. It might be a little more dangerous. It might be, you might slip and stuff. My scope's pretty banged up from from doing stuff like that. But it is worth it in scenarios like that deer. The 2019 buck I got was, if I didn't stay on him, he could have been up in that doe zone, and maybe there was a doe with him, and the doe could have seen me, and things would have been all over. So I mean, it's stay on them if they're moving.
Heck of a story.
I can say.
Yeah, good stories. Two good years right back to back, and
a special moment there at the end too, man.
Yeah,
it's
very
something.
cool. That's why we do it.
Yeah, for sure. You must have had about a heart attack when that thing jumped up, though.
Yeah,
he wasn't like, wow.
I was. So I called my pops actually because I didn't know. I actually thought for a second I had no extra bullets, but I I always have 2 in where I keep my tag. I'll keep 2 extra bullets ready to go. But I thought I'd ran out, and I found one I had in my chest pocket in my wool coat, so I pulled that one out, and I was like, all right. And then I do have my 2 extras, but I told him, I was like, this thing's still going, and I don't want to just sit here and never had to do it. So, and he's a bow hunter, so I had to, he has that information about hanging out and waiting.
Kind of tying back to where you said that buck itself was personal to you. When you're hunting a deer, when you're tracking, it's like you said, the most personal thing because it's you versus the deer in their territory.
It's cat and mouse.
It's something. It's if you've never tried it before, you won't fully understand it versus stand hunting and stuff. But there's something about it, kind of tying back to what you said.
There is. I mean, it's
it's addicting.
It really, I mean, it's
a feeling. You can't really
back to my pike fishing obsession. I mean, it's very similar to that. When you see a 40-something, 50-inch fish come right at the boat and it doesn't eat, that makes you want to go out more.
Yeah.
It's like tracking a buck that you don't catch up with or you don't shoot, and when you do finally make it all happen, it's just incredible. So I mean, it's
nothing like it.
Yeah, cat and mouse, like you said.
That's what it is.
That's a perfect way to put it. So I'll live that cat and mouse life for as long as I can.
Yeah, me too. Right till the end for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're all pretty young, so.
Yeah, that's right. So we're gonna transition a little bit into let's talk some sheds.
Yeah.
You're quite the shed hunter.
Yeah, it's kind of a newer. I've been doing it for about 4 years, so. But I've been hunting most of my life. My first buck was a spike I got during the youth hunt. I think I was 11, 12 maybe. But yeah, the shed hunting, it's kind of like during COVID is when I really went crazy.
Oh, no kidding. Yep.
Shop shut down.
At the time.
It's mandatory.
Right, yeah, you had to.
Yeah, so it was a weird thing. I was selling stuff off my front porch at my house. And,
really?
Yeah, it was really interesting. So, but basically I was able to just hit it hard and get a bunch. And a lot of the ones I found first were older chewed ones, so I didn't bother bringing a lot of those. But, a lot of these, most of them were from last year. And I found my first match set, which was this one here.
Yeah.
And that was last year. And my assumption was they were there for a year, a season.
Bleached out.
And so.
It's a heck of a little collection, though, for just getting into it, man.
Yep. I was very excited. And my pops, he's, again, same thing, very good hunter, but he hasn't shed hunted a bunch. But he found this one, actually. That was his first one.
That's a nice one.
That he found. And this was way up on a mountain.
Really?
So that was kind of an eye-opener, how high up these deer hang when they're dropping.
Yeah, that's
sometimes.
Something we said, we kind of talked about before we started the podcast is we think in the big mountains, a lot of the bucks shed, they don't even come down. Like, they just shed up on top. Yeah, they just live up there.
They got a spot, and it's suitable for them to, withstand all the, conditions we have through the late fall and early winter, and even all the way through the winter.
Right.
Some of them, like you said, they do not come down.
Yeah, they just stay up.
They'll hole up.
It's kind of the differences between, like, you look at Maine where they come down in yard and stuff, but then you come to the high peaks where there's not any logging, not all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like you have in Vermont and around here, and they just live up there all year round. It's crazy that they're just tough animals.
I've even heard Hal Blood talk about how he's seen big bucks way back in all winter in like 4 feet of snow where they just don't come out.
Just rogue bucks.
Yeah, they just stay back in there.
Yeah.
But I think they're very I don't know the word, solitary. What's the word? They like to be alone.
Doing their own thing.
Yeah, they like to be away from the crowd. And I think the older they get, the smarter they get. And I think the yards are probably the most dangerous place for a deer to be because that's where your predators are going to be.
Coyotes are going to.
So the big bucks are probably,
they get that big for a reason.
That's right. Yeah,
I agree. I think the big ones know they have a defense, and that's kicking in the jaw or the skull of the coyote if they can. They're going to do that. I think.
You don't want to mess with one of them.
You don't. No. I actually, it's funny because I just checked a game camera that's been out for like the last 3 months, and there was only like probably 8 pictures on it. One of them was a big buck by himself. He had dropped his antlers in the spot where I'm really psyched to get into this spring.
Go find him, yeah.
Yeah, but he was right near this big coyote track. So it's kind of an interesting. I'm a little worried to get in there this spring. So I'm hoping he came out on top because it was a big coyote track. He was by himself.
Yep.
There's another section in this chunk of woods where there's a good chunk of like bachelor group kind of, younger 2-3-year-old bucks all kind of hanging together. And I don't fear for them as much because they got each other.
Yeah.
So,
sure.
but, sometimes it's those big bucks that are by themselves, especially if they're, 6, 7, they're maybe on the decline.
Yep.
They might not be able to hold. And he's a long deer. He's got a real long body. So he's a 10-pointer. He's real nice.
Oh,
but
no kidding.
it's one of those deer that, like, recently, I haven't used cameras for a while, but I've been watching him for a little bit.
Oh, no kidding.
It's pretty impressive to see where he is kind of on his own right now, wintering, because I saw him in the fall, and he was pretty good ways away from where he is now.
Yep.
But, it's just neat because he's kind of fending for himself. He's not near any of the other deer.
Right.
And where these bachelor group kind of, well, I shouldn't say that because it's post rut, but
yeah.
I guess what is a survival group is what you could call it. They're
Yeah.
kind of, they're in these little pods where they're trying to defend themselves, and
Yeah.
there's these does too. Same thing, 4, 5, 6 does together, and then these smaller bucks. But this big buck, he's all the way. He's a mile or 2 miles from where
Yeah.
they
His own
are
thing.
by
Yeah,
himself.
I think that's typical.
Yeah. So it's just cool to see, and I really just fingers crossed that all these big bucks, especially this year with the crust
I
and the
know.
weather change we've had, that they can fend for themselves. So
Do you have any tips for a rookie shed hunter like myself? I've just started getting into it.
I mean, I'm again, I'm only a couple years on you, but I do recommend getting into those zones where there's definitely a concentration of all deer. Because I think in the fall, there is a late rut and stuff.
Yep.
You get into scenarios where there's, like we were talking earlier, acorns left over from the previous year, maybe. That attracted a lot of deer this year. It seemed late season, so kind of dial in on where the does are, and then the other deer and the food, for a late season, because I think generally they're going to be in either previous, like a beech or acorn crop, or they'll be in some sort of a hemlock stand of sorts that really that's more survival feed here, and any browse like lichens, moss, mushrooms, whatever, like we were talking. But depends on the year, try and find primarily the mass crop, either fresh or leftover, and start there, and if not, go to the browse areas.
Yep.
That's what I would recommend.
What about southern facing slopes? Do you key on those, or?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
but I think, again, like we were talking, it seems like those normal average sized deer and primarily the does and the smaller bucks are going to use those, and I think the big bucks kind of, they'll be fairly south facing, but
Right.
I think they chisel out their own life.
They still hang high, yeah.
Yeah, high, and even sometimes in the shade. I don't know, maybe they got that fat reserve. They got enough on them where they're like, I don't need that sun every day. I don't know though.
It's a mystique to them.
Yeah,
because that's where this
so
one's
cool.
hanging. It's kind of shadowy. It's not the sunniest spot. Maybe he's got access or he hikes to it or something. But
Yeah, no
it's pretty
kidding.
dark. Yeah. So
What's the story on this giant shed we got here?
yeah.
Because we'll post a picture of this after to the Instagram. But what's the story on that
So
one?
a
That
good
is
customer of the shop, the guy Jim. His name is Jim. His last name is Hunt, actually, and he's old. He's not on social media or anything. He's what I'd consider the classic old timer for this area. He's
Good
been
old
hunting
boy.
here forever, and he
Under the
brings in.
radar.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
yeah. He's been around, fishing and hunting this area for forever, but he comes in a lot. He's a big brook trout guy, and he loves, Pittsburgh and that whole area. He goes up to the upper Connecticut a ton. So he's brought in some sheds, some mounts. He's brought in, all kinds of Euro stuff that he's done, and it's pretty cool. But that one he brought in, that was probably about 4 or 5 months ago, sometime, right before the season shut down for fishing. And he told me, I got a real special one. He did require
man.
He required me to tape it. He didn't want the location because he wrote the location.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
So it is taped off for that reason.
Yeah.
But he found it in 1978, which you can see that. I left
Yeah.
that, clear, so you can see it was actually found in the 70s. But
1978.
he was brook trout fishing at a remote spot, and he was going across a brook. He said his buddy had crossed the brook right before him. So they were going to, get to this remote pond, and all of a sudden, he looks down and there's a huge rack next to him, and picked it up. He said it was right in the middle of the brook. And the first thing he noticed, I think he said, was these crazy points here. And, what he told me is like, it just makes your imagination wander.
How many bucks that just live and die?
Yeah, that one definitely lived and died, and I don't think it ever saw a human.
Yeah,
that's great. You don't.
That's
you
the
do
stuff
not
I
see
dream
those.
about. Yeah,
No, I call those the devil stickers. I mean, that's
Straight out. Straight out.
And that other, I don't know what. I mean, because this is the Routine, and then this.
That's
is
like a double main beam.
Yeah, double main.
Yeah,
One like that a few years ago, right?
Yeah, I got one in Vermont like that.
It's crazy stuff. And so see this ridge here?
Yeah.
You look at that deer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think
similar.
there's similar genetics.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
They're within 10
Same
miles.
area, kind of.
Yeah.
Same mountain range.
So, I'll do it later, but you hold this one up to the right one there, and you look at all the what's going on here. I mean, you got all these stickers. You can see there's almost like a...
Yeah, you got like a paddle brow on that.
Yeah, paddle brow. Yeah, kind of like a spork type deal.
Just
Yeah.
heavy bases.
Yep.
Bunch of gnarly stuff at the bottom.
Yep. So I think that genetic, it's been around for a long time, and it's still around. But that deer, he obviously didn't have as much crazy stuff going on. But
Right.
It was crazy enough for me to believe that there was a connection.
Oh, for sure.
He's
Yeah.
got a lot, and just the color, it's bleached out.
Yep.
Yes, this was chewed up. It was sitting there for a little while, but I think it was a light colored rack to begin with. So.
It makes you wonder though what that deer in its prime, what that deer was.
Yeah.
Like you can only imagine what that other
250 probably. I mean, it was
Oh
a
my God.
big body
Big giant.
deer.
just heavy horn, heavy, just a brute of a.
And if you were
buck.
to score this, I mean, I don't know. I mean,
even
I'm
chewed
sure-
up, it's still
I'm
you're right.
sure.
That's what I was thinking.
I bet you, just from looking at that shed, what's left of it, I bet you he was in the 170s at least.
Okay.
Yeah.
with all these extras.
Yeah,
Who knows
oh,
what you
yeah.
got on the other
Yeah,
side too?
170s.
With these halfway chewed down
Definitely.
or more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like with that one, he's got a sticker on that left side or his
Yep.
right, but there could have been some of that going on. You can see even that veining, that kind of. It's not as prominent because it was right, but he's
Similar bone structure.
yeah, very similar. But yeah, it's just incredible. I mean, that's
Just a beast.
It's one of
of
my
a- beast of a
favorite
mountain
sheds
buck.
I've ever seen, and it's unfortunate that it did get so chewed. He said if it wasn't in the water, probably would have all been gone.
That's interesting. My buddy Connor Schlong, we
Last
just had
episode,
yeah,
yep.
last episode.
Yep.
His biggest shed he's ever found was in a brook.
No way.
Yeah,
The tips
yeah.
were chewed up kind of like that, right?
Okay.
The tips that were sticking
same deal.
up.
That was a main shed, but
Okay.
still in a brook.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
That
A
is
little
tough, yeah.
time preservation. I mean.
Yeah, who
without
knows? That thing could have been old,
Yeah.
Yeah.
real old,
Yeah.
in that
Based
brook
on
like
the
that.
chewing like that, you never.
Well,
Yeah.
chewed up in the brook. That's interesting. It's like,
Dry years. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe it was a
maybe.
coyote dragged it out, or maybe a coyote was carrying it around and dropped
That's
it in the
always
brook.
my thought is how often. I mean, it's like a dog bone.
They pick 'em up.
Yeah.
They definitely
They
pick them
have
up.
to,
Yeah,
right?
yep.
Okay, yeah. I've been waiting on the day where I check my game cam. There's one
Yeah.
cruising with one.
Oh man, no kidding.
Get you fired up though to go find some sheds, man.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Vermont is awful shed hunting.
Oh man.
In case you're wondering.
Yeah.
Don't go to Vermont to
Kind
shed
of
hunt.
hurt.
It's terrible.
I wouldn't say it's good here, but it's like where you were saying southern. You
Yeah.
go south here. It's very good.
Right.
And you guys, I saw you crushed it down in Mass. So,
Yeah, we did.
was awesome.
Yeah, I've only found 3 sheds in my life up until that day.
Okay, yeah,
And then I did
yeah.
3 that day. So
You
I
guys
was
pull total, was it 6 or 7?
7 that day.
Seven nice sheds.
Yeah,
dude.
down in the suburbs.
That's
Most
awesome.
deer I've ever seen. I've been in the
There's
Midwest.
a ton of deer down there.
I've been in the
you got
Midwest a
this
bunch.
pile.
Yeah.
One day.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a fantastic collection for the
Yeah.
North Woods. What you got going on here for just
Yeah,
starting.
very cool.
Yeah, it's good, and again, a lot of them get chewed up. 'Cause,
Yep, yep.
we actually the one thing I see a ton of is porcupine, and I've always
Yeah.
heard they're
Oh,
the
yeah.
biggest culprit
Yeah,
in
they are.
chowing them up. So
Yeah.
we got a shit ton of porcupine. I took probably 3 or 4 pictures of porcupines last year, and they were definitely different animals.
Yep.
They weren't the same one. They were all different spots.
I always see a pile of them during turkey season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everywhere during turkey season. You walk right up to them, they don't care. Or they
Yep.
shoot up a tree.
Yeah, right. You see their like little den with there's like shit everywhere.
Oh yeah, little pellets everywhere.
The big old pile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Porcupine in the house.
All right, to kind of keep this rolling and change subjects here, let's go into some situation stuff. So we get some guys that listen to the podcast that maybe want to learn tracking or want to learn how to hunt in the big woods.
Yep.
So we'll kind of give you some situations, see how you break them down, and kind of give us your know-how on stuff. So first situation I have is I want to hear how you break down a bare ground day. So if you don't have snow, you're not tracking, and these are some big mountains. How do you go about breaking down these big woods bucks when it's bare ground? It's tough because it's not easy. It's tough.
Yeah. So this past year, there was more bare ground days, obviously, than not. So, it seems to be the norm, unfortunately. But I think we'll get some good winners coming up. But you got to get used to it. That's the big thing, is accept it first. Don't sit around twiddling your thumbs waiting for snow, because
Gotta hunt.
So that's number one. Just go in there with confidence. So my first day of the season this year, it was downpouring. It was as wet as you can get. It was foggy. It was like 48 degrees, I want to say. And I actually shot at a buck.
Oh, really?
It was the first deer I ever shot at in rain. My scope was a mess, and I had a slight moment of hesitation. It was probably about 40 yards away, upslope, and I think I shot right over him. So that gave me like a little more, inspiration to get out on those shitty days that are rainy and kind of wet, where especially with a scope, you have no confidence or very little confidence. But like a normal bare ground day when it's not raining, I got a deer in 2017 on bare ground, and I was just walking. I was actually with my girlfriend, and we were kind of cruising around. And at the time, she was walking ahead of me, and I was just kind of hanging back. And we had done a sit, and it was just super loud, super cold too. I think it was -10 that morning. Ooh. Yeah, so we ended up like sitting it out, and then we were still hunting our way out. And next thing you know, a doe pops up and kind of takes 2 bounds, gone. Mature doe. I was like, all right, that's a good sign. There's probably a buck around. And sure enough, a buck popped out, and I ended up shooting a neck shot. But that scenario right there, it was just a slow, still hunt. I think you need to have maybe 1 or 2 successful bare ground hunts to have confidence. But tactic wise, go in there as if you're tracking a deer on snow. Go in there, maybe not necessarily. I know you can follow them on bare ground, wet leaves, mud. But just go in there, even if you're not on a deer, and just tell yourself you're going to see something, because especially during the rut. I mean, you have a high likelihood of crossing tracks with a deer, and if it's the doe, good chance there's a buck with it, and that was my scenario there. So, really just confidence, extra confidence, 110%. You go 100% or more with tracking, but a little extra, just because it's not easy. I mean, it's tough.
And grind you right down. It's
tough.
Yeah. So just keep at it.
But every day is different though in the big woods, man. It's every single day is different. You gotta hunt. You gotta stick with it.
Yeah. Yep. And the days that are tough, I mean, they're tough on us. They're tough on the deer. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, they're not happy when it's pouring rain. So you kind of do have a little bit of an advantage, I guess, in a way. I mean, they're probably sitting down, hunkered, but can you find them?
Yeah. When you're bare ground hunting, are you like going into areas where maybe you've followed deer before when you're tracking or scouting, or are you just kind of going, putting on miles and seeing what happens?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely areas I know, I'm familiar with, and I know there's deer. If it's bare ground, I'm not going to go blind into a spot where, you think there's some giant possibly. And,
you're going off intel.
Yeah, so, I will certainly hunt different spots when there's fresh snow.
Gotcha.
I will hunt areas that are, kind of tried and true, if you will, during bare ground, and then, I like to explore like you guys do. So I'm kind of all over the place. When we get the opportunity to track, I mean, I think this year I probably hunted 15 to 20 different spots, I mean, throughout the whole season. And, sometimes it's half a day in one spot, and, I don't find something I'm looking for, and I'll leave. But, a lot of the times it's, I'll commit to a spot for a full day. That's my norm. But sometimes I'll break the day up, and I'll do one spot and then another. And certainly bow hunting. I
Yep.
have not shot a deer with a bow yet. I've shot at deer.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's essential, finding those runs that they're using
Yep.
at that specific time of the year. But rifle wise, I mean, I feel like you're wasting time if you're not all over the place, because
True.
I think I heard you say it. You educate those deer. I mean, you get in
Oh,
an
yeah.
area, you beat it to death. Those deer know where you're at. So,
Yep.
yeah.
You're hunting on 3-day-old snow,
Yep.
and you cut a buck track. It's huge,
Mm-hmm.
monster buck track.
What do you call those, Isaac?
Gohibohorbus.
Oh, nice.
Big Gohibohorbus track.
Bigger than the Goliath or
Yes,
the beast.
but it's an old track.
Okay.
What are you doing? You gonna take them, or are you gonna walk over it and look for a fresh one?
I'll probably maybe take it, see where it goes for a little bit, see if I can pick up like a fresher track from the same deer, kind of stay in that area. It's kind of what happened with the 2018 buck I got. Was I saw tracks everywhere, and I think there was a couple older tracks that were from that same deer, and he was just in that area for a couple days. Mature bucks especially, I don't think they're roaming as far as some of the younger ones. So if it was an old track, I'd jump on it, I'd follow it. Hopefully it leads to something fresh. If not, maybe mark that on Onyx, take
Yep.
note of it, and come back and hope to maybe cross one in a future date. Fresh snow that's fresher, but definitely mental note, at least, if not a full mark on the GPS. So and then if it's say 3 days old, and again it's a huge track, he's
Yep.
probably there. So
Yeah.
I don't know, I'll investigate. But no, I see a lot of tracks that are big, and I mark them. I mean, that's
Yep.
the only way to really do it nowadays is mark them, see where you crossed, whatever, and maybe in a day or two there's another storm, you can go in and see them an hour old or 2 hours old or whatever.
Do you put your tracker on Onyx on?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, so I just got a new phone. The thing weighs like 10 pounds. It's like one of
Yeah.
those really fancy
Yeah.
Samsung. So now that I have like better battery and stuff,
Yep.
I'm going to use it more. I did, and it killed battery. Again, on Map and Compass primarily. I'll use that as like a quick check. My
Yep.
phone and Onyx. So now that I have this better phone, I'm going to use it a lot more to see. But I did for a while because I was curious, and that's how I got that number.
Yep.
8 miles, 6
Right,
miles
right.
usually, sometimes 10 to 12. So
Did you say the tracker killed your battery?
yeah,
Yeah, you gotta get a power bank.
Yeah. I
Those are
I
cool.
have one. The one I have is old though. It's super heavy. So I
Yep.
think I got to get a modern one that's like half the
Yeah.
weight. Cause
Yeah.
it's key. I mean, nowadays with all this technology, you have to update.
I know, yeah, you do.
Yeah. So
Cool. Well, Adam, you have
Next situation. We kind of dabbled on it a little bit when we were talking about your buck story earlier about how you come across another track when you're tracking that one, but you committed to the one you're on.
Yep.
So kind of the situation I had for you is, say you're tracking a buck, you've been on him half a day or so, good amount of miles. It's not the biggest track yours, so it's a good buck, but not the biggest one. And you come across a bigger buck track, relatively the same age, maybe a little older, right around that same. Are you hopping off that smaller buck and getting on the bigger buck, or are you going to commit to that one you've been on?
the one that you're invested in.
Yeah.
It's
a tough call
definitely
sometimes.
in the scenario you just described, I'm gonna bail and I'm gonna get the bigger one. But
Yep.
most scenarios, like say it's a pretty good buck, and I saw it, and I'm like, all right, that's nice. I'm gonna keep on it. But this year, I mean, it wasn't a huge deer. It only weighed. It was all rutted out. It was like under 150, it was 148 or 145 pounds. The track was huge, and I had jumped a deer before that, a smaller buck. I picked his track up, jumped him within 15 minutes of tracking him, and then I came across this other buck track, and I said, forget it. I'm not going to follow this other deer. He's aware. He saw me. I was within 30 yards of him, and he took right off. I don't think it was that big. It was definitely a 2.5 year old, something like that. But deer, I jumped first. It was funny because I came up on it, popped up out of his bed. I saw his rack vaguely, probably like a 3, 4, on each side, so like a 6 or whatever. And then he took off, and then I could see him way up high, standing there, looking back at me. So that's how I knew. I was like, if I keep on him, he's going to keep doing that. So I abandoned that. I took a hard right on this ridge I was on, and I cut this other track, and it looked big. I thought it was 200 pounds. And it ended up being, again, 100 and, I think it was like 43 or something.
Just run out Bigfoot, though.
So
Clown feet.
Yeah, big clown feet. I mean, you could tell it had stick legs, but then boom, it's Bigfoot. But it was with another deer, so that was the scenario. It was do I stick with this one deer that was by itself that I already jumped, that I knew was was definitely smaller. And again, I was down to the wire at this point. Is how I describe it. We had such a tough season. I had a really good opportunity up north, and didn't catch up with the deer. I bailed on it because I was solo and it was going straight and it was doing what that deer did. So I was like, all right, we got a week left, and I almost stuck with it. I was like, all right, I'll take the smaller deer. But then again, I crossed this other buck. It was with a doe. The doe broke off, and I was tracking it, and all of a sudden, I mean, I call it the death creep. I think maybe the Benoits use that term, or that's probably their pussyfooting, but same deal. You're going real slow. I was crunching every stick, every leaf, everything with my foot first before putting my full body weight on. If you're a lightweight dude, or even if you're not, I mean, you can do that. You just with ease. It's what Native Americans did. Moccasins. That whole idea of being quiet in the woods. Agile. That's it. I mean, you just gotta break things with finesse, if you will. Yep. I don't fish finesse often. I fish pike and muskie and all that shit. But I grew up fishing finesse, and with the brook trout, I think that really translates. You can really come into a place that's high alarm. Those deer are very alert and come in quietly. But I was coming in on this deer. It was with a doe. It broke off, and I eventually found it bedded down 30 yards from me and shot it. So. As far as your original question goes, I mean, I think like a shitty track, an old track, something like that. It's no reason to not follow it. And if you do get another deer, like you were saying, and you want to bail on it, there's no problem with that either. So I kind of took it was a mix of those two things. There was a bunch of old tracks I could have followed that were bigger. I jumped that one deer. He was right there. Next thing you know, I find another track, and it was kind of a weird day where you couldn't date them very well. It wasn't wet snow. It was fresh. It was falling into the track. So I went with it, and it worked out. So I don't think there's any rhyme or reason, especially in an area like this where there's so few deer. They're going to be in an area regardless, if it's within 3 days or if it's, a bigger buck, whatever. Definitely take advantage of that, I mean, you don't want to go for, just small deer in this area where there's so much woods.
Right.
So, try and find the bigger bucks, try and find the fresher tracks.
Cool.
That's your best bet, but.
Yep.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So.
All right. And the last situation that I have for you is it's the first day of rifle season.
Yep.
You got fresh snow.
Yep.
Where are you headed? Not specifically. I don't want a road name.
We won't go
I
there.
just want to. I want a geological feature.
Yeah.
I want to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm gonna go probably to a spot where I know there's relative pinch. We really don't have pinch points here in a sense. Like we do, but. The spots that are pinches are spots I'll bow hunt early season.
Yep.
So if I were to get fresh snow and I want to head out, I want to hit a track, I want to get a possible 200-pound deer or more, big chunk of woods.
Yep.
Definitely that. A spot that I can hike to. If you can drive to it, generally you're not going to find that quality of a track. You might. I mean, you definitely get lucky, but now I'm going to hit that big chunk of woods, and I'm definitely going to a spot that. If I can, I know it like the back of my hand. But, this year that didn't happen because we didn't get snow in those areas, where I'm familiar with. So I had to go in the, unknown territory. So I'll pick if it's a scenario like that, I'll pick a spot where it's, it's similar to where I'm familiar with, say like a big bowl or a big drainage or, whatever. It's similar features to where I find bucks in my zones, if you will, but elsewhere, north of here, like I said, I hunted, up by Errol and stuff, and certain areas that were, over towards the main border that I've never hunted before, and I got on a number of 200-pound bucks, and that was this year and last year, and I think maybe the year before was the first year I hunted up there. So, I'll take that kind of mentality, and it's like what you guys do, really, just kind of roll with what you're used to in a location that has similar terrain features and geological features, whether it be old mountains or new mountains or whatever. You could go to Vermont, you're fishing, you're hunting those older, mountains, and it's very similar. When you go over to Champlain, you're fishing an older lake. You're fishing for these bowfin and gar and stuff. But it's kind of opposite. You go to those newer mountains, those fresher mountains, like the Adirondacks or the Whites and stuff, and you get into older deer. So it's kind of a weird scenario.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. There's no rhyme or reason really with like where you're gonna find big deer here, but so
cool.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right. Well,
kind of covered situations. That's good though.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So you want to circle back on your 2018 buck?
Yeah, we definitely, we'll go back. We got sidetracked.
Yeah.
Anytime, but
yeah.
No, the 2018 buck, so basically that deer came from, no knowledge. I had no idea it was there, so I shot it. And I don't usually get wrapped up in that, it's just kind of like you guys do again. Just find a spot, and if it's good, hunt it hard. But that deer, 2 years, I think, or a year after I shot it, there was a shed found. It was the left side, his left side.
A year after you shot?
After I shot it, it was found.
Kidding.
Yeah, so that was pretty neat, and it was perfectly intact. It wasn't chewed at all. So I actually had it for a while. I'll show you a picture, and probably 4 months ago, a guy came in the shop, and he's a local hunter. He's found some sheds, and he brought one in that he found, and it was pretty chewed up, and I could identify the main beam basically.
Really?
That was it, and it was the same deer. It was older than the one that was found previously.
Wow.
So,
no kidding.
That's awesome. Yeah. So
he's an ancient buck.
He's around.
He's an ancient buck, and it's kind of funny because it's not really a thing that I wouldn't go after one deer, because we have a lot of deer in New Hampshire, all over the place. The whole state's loaded with deer. So, but it just so happened to work out. It was familiar territory. I grew up in those woods, and I was like, all right, let me see that, and matched it up with the other, the actual rack. And
yep, no kidding.
I don't know. I don't usually go on those, those tall tales of, this is that deer, but it looked like it had a triangular brow tine. That was the
no kidding
giveaway. So, yeah. So, and then I had my pops kind of look at it and certify it. He's very skeptical of stuff like that. If there's like any connection.
And he thought the same thing.
Yeah, right away. He was like,
no kidding.
That's the same deer. So,
no way.
Yep.
Cool.
So you said you found that they had that left side?
Yeah, so it was the left side, so the short time.
Was it near the area that you shot him, or was it?
Yeah, I mean, relatively kind of,
yeah.
But, these bucks travel, as we're kind of figuring out.
It's
kind of wild, so it was, but it wasn't,
Super similar, though, as far as the shape and everything?
Yeah, I mean, identical.
Identical,
really.
Pretty much. Not much growth
main
or
beam
decrease
had
or
that ridge line on it.
Yep.
And it had the... the short tines, and you could just tell right away. An old buck with those, I mean, it's tall. It's definitely tall. It's not like some of those main bucks where they're short, stubby, they don't have the long tine. They want to get through the brush. We have a lot of open hardwoods here still.
Yep.
So,
in
the White Mountains area, all the way up north until you get to about, I guess, Errol area. I mean, you got a lot of open hardwoods still. So, south down to, beyond Plymouth area, I mean, there's hardwoods, and then you get in those spots where it's a little bit of oak and stuff. But these deer can move through bigger, they're not stuck in spruce and hemlock and that type of stuff. They can go into it, they can refuge in it, but for the most part, they're in open hardwood. So
cool.
Yeah.
So what are you using? What are you carrying in the woods? I know you said you have a scope gun. Is it?
Yeah.
What are you using? 260, you said?
So it's a Ruger 260. It's a compact. So it's funny. It's the gun my dad bought me when I was a kid, and I shot a spike with it. It was youth weekend. I think I was 11 years old, and shot that buck with it. And after that, I shot another buck with it sitting against a big tree. I think it's like a big beach. My pops dropped me off and was like, let me know if you get anything, and took off and shot a 6-pointer with it, and it was like immediate as soon as the sun came up.
Cool.
So this thing's got some luck to it. I've been out twice, and I've been out for no time, and I've got 2 deer, and after that I stuck with it, and I got like 5 or 6 more deer with it. So
Cool.
So yeah, so I actually had a chance. My pops, he has a 7600, and I had a chance to get one. He's like, you want one, whatever, and I was like, no, I'll just stick with my, the Ruger, the 260, and it's just a brush gun. It's great. It's super compact, light. It's perfect for around here, and I do have a scope. It's like a fixed 4X. You're just kind of stuck with what you got, and I kind of like that. I don't like the option almost of having some sort of
the zoom.
And, I'm gonna upgrade. I'm gonna get a Leopold, I think, for the Woodman arms, but it's just simple. It's what I'm used to. It's what I grew up with.
Comfort zone.
So I really like the gun, and it's funny because I did have to shoot that 200-pounder a few times, but I think if I shot it once and just kind of chilled out, I was younger, I was excited, I charged after it, and had to shoot a few more times, but I think it would have went down eventually with that single shot. And again, it's Remington Coralocks, that's what I'm using, so those usually do the job. But yeah, it's a funny gun, I kind of get flack from my family about it.
Hey man,
like
if it works,
gun,
it works for you. You run that thing.
if it ain't broke, don't fix it, man.
That's it.
Exactly.
That's it.
I mean, you got some bucks to
Yeah.
show for it. No doubt about it.
That's right.
Exactly. You lay that thing on the deer too. It's like some giant.
Short little barrel on it.
Yeah, and I'm not going for that, but yeah, it's 16 and a half inches.
Oh, no
Nice.
kidding.
Sweet, yeah.
Was it
piece.
cut? Was it?
No, that's factory.
That's
like,
really
yeah,
an old mountain rifle.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I like it. At first, my dad told me it's a kid's gun. I researched it. I was like, "This isn't a kid's gun. It's a compact."
It's carbine, probably. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's again bolt action, which isn't ideal, but I become efficient. I become quick with it, and I'm comfortable. So
That's what you like, man.
yeah, I'm sticking with it. But the Woodman arms, I'm getting real psyched. 'Cause,
You are, yeah.
something new.
For the muzzle loader?
New gun in a long time. So
Cool. Well, hey, thanks, man.
yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
It's a great podcast. Thanks to everybody for tuning in, and thanks to John. I hope you guys liked it. We learned a lot along the way, and
Absolutely.
we'll close it out from there. We'll see you guys later.
Cool. See you there.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Hey, a quick word about STAGR Gear. We're a new company coming out this year that's making products specifically designed for hunting and tracking in the Northeast. We got some sweet, innovative products that are built with Big Woods heritage, but have some modern twists and tweaks to them that are really going to give you an advantage out there. So you can check us out on Instagram or Facebook, or you can go on our website, www.staggergear.com. See you out there.